Welcome, lads and ladies, to today's episode of Doomsday Pantry. I found some potatoes in somebody's backyard. Okay, it's my backyard, and they weren't in the yard. They're inside, in my pantry, because I am responsible, and I bought lots of supplies. But tonight, we are going to be making a potato bake dish. So, stay tuned and I'll show you what you need for tonight's dinner. Alright, so as promised, here are our ingredients. We're going to need butter and flour for our roux. These are the seasonings we're using: salt, onion powder, cumin, paprika, chili powder, a little bit of cayenne powder, pepper, minced garlic. There's my scoop for the flour. And then we're going to use an assortment of bell peppers, tomatoes, green onions, and potatoes. And then the cheese for our sauce. So, first steps first, we're going to start a roux just like we did in the last episode with 2 small tabs of butter and melt that down. 2 tabs, slowly melting. Let them melt down. I've got this on a low to medium 4. I'm going to let this sit for a minute while I wash off all my vegetables. Add your garlic. My potatoes are rinsed, but the butter is melting, so we're going to start this roux. Remember, we're going for a little bit at a time. It might be a good idea to pre-slice your butter tabs, that way you can just throw them on as necessary. I did not do that, foresight. So, after this tab of butter melts in, we're going to be adding our flour. So, we'll come back here in a minute. As before, sprinkle of flour. Stir it up. And add tabs of butter until you've gone through a third of a cup of flour. Just like that. And add a tab of butter. Rinse, repeat. Alright, so we have melted down a stick of butter and a third of a cup of flour. That is the start of our sauce. If you can see it in there, the garlic is browned but not burnt. That is our goal. Now we're going to remove this from heat, let it sit for a minute while we rinse the rest of our vegetables. My dutiful kitchen assistant went and got my limes because I forgot that they were part of this dish. So our acid for our sauce is going to be lime juice. We're going to fresh squeeze some limes into our sauce. We do have another stick of butter prepared for when we start the rest of the sauce, and we're going to melt it in there as we go. Okay, I have finished rinsing off our veggies. As before, you are going to take your stuff out of your pan and put it in a pot. Now, adding 1 cup at a time, carefully, we're going to pour a cup of milk into our roux, mix it up, and add a handful of cheese for each cup of milk. I am using the Mexi blend because this is a Mexican-themed potato dish, hence the spices I chose. Our cheese is added, mix it up, and while this is combining, we will start cutting our vegetables, letting this slowly heat. This is still on a low heat. I'm sitting at 4, so I guess medium-low. If you hear that sizzling, yeah, that's our sauce congealing. So, remember to stir this once every minute or 2, so you're probably going to make it through half a potato to a potato, or maybe part of a pepper to maybe a whole pepper. I don't know your skill level with a knife. So, before you're going to have to stir it again and add more liquid and cheese. Alright, so we've done 2 cups milk, 2 handfuls of cheese, and now I'm squeezing lime juice freshly in from my lime halves. I'm going to try and get as much as I can in there from each half of lime, and then I'm going to use that pulp with, well, I might not. I might keep it for another project.
So we're going to do our 2 whole limes now, worth of halves. So 4 halves. Now, this is just for reference. Notice the consistency of it is similar to a can of cream of mushroom or cream of chicken. We're essentially going for cream of cheese here. This is going to be our sauce in the potato bake. We are, however, going to fry our potatoes and our peppers first, lightly. And that's also when we're going to season them. We're going to add some seasoning to this now and another cup of milk without another handful of cheese. Now, the reason that I am doing this is because I want to be able to step away from this for a minute without it getting too much thicker. So I'm essentially putting a cup of milk in there for it to reduce while I'm cutting the rest of my potatoes and peppers so that I can start frying them. So that's not quite the consistency we're going for, and I'm going to turn the heat down to a 2 off of a 4. But that should provide me enough time while this still stays hot that it's not going to be too thick for me to get into my potato bake when I'm ready for that. Since potatoes take the longest to cook, we're starting with those. For me, this is 3 whole potatoes. Of course, you can scale this down as you want, because again, I'm cooking for 7, and we eat like 10 to 12, so usually leaving leftovers, hopefully leaving leftovers. So we're going to do 3 potatoes right now, and I'm going to set those aside, and then I'm going to do 3 more potatoes for a total of 6, but I'm reserving the right to change my mind on how much I'm using. But if you're making for a family of 4, 3 potatoes should be plenty. I'm adding another half cup of milk right now, and I'm going to add 2 more tabs of butter to our sauce and a handful of cheese. I am also adding the last of our cayenne red pepper, some paprika, and then I'm going to grind some salt into it. While I am in the mode of seasoning things, I'm going to sprinkle some chili powder over the top of our potatoes, along with some paprika, and then some salt, and we'll throw some minced garlic in there too. Note, I usually use a mounded spoon of minced garlic, and this is not quite as much because that has garlic in it too. So we're trying to pair them together. We don't want too much garlic. Note how thin our sauce is now. Remember how I said we want it thick like cream of mushroom when you pull it fresh out of the can? So we're going to let this sit, stirring it occasionally, once every 2 to 3 minutes, until it reduces a little bit and thickens up. We're going to do this for about 5 minutes. Let's go for 10. We're going to let it continue to heat for about 10 minutes, and then we're going to remove it from the heat and let it cool, and as it's cooling, we're also going to continue to stir it. As it's cooling, it will thicken up even more, and then hopefully it will be ready by the time that we are ready to throw our potatoes and our peppers in our casserole dish. I have just added a little bit more oil to our potatoes to help them from sticking to the pan, because they're still not quite where I want them at yet. I want a little bit of crisp on the outside, which means that I'm going to have to let them sit for a minute, and I don't want them to stick to the pan while they're sitting. So, added probably 2 tablespoons more oil. Alright, I have finished slicing up my peppers, and I'm about to add them to the potatoes. But I just added 2 more tabs of butter and another handful of cheese to our sauce here. It's on the verge of boiling / boiling. So we're going to stir this up a bit, and then we're going to remove it from the heat. And that should allow for it to thicken up by the time we are ready to add it to our casserole dish. And here we are with the peppers and the potatoes. Look at that color. Gorgeous. Now I'm going to add a little bit of oil and then stir it up. And we're going to keep this on a 6, so medium high. Now, as we're doing this, I will tell you, I still have the tomatoes and the green onions. So what I'm going to be using that for is a garnish on the top. I'm going to dice the tomatoes, going to slice the green onions. Now, if you are watching this video and not cooking simultaneously, and pausing as you go, one thing that you could do to lighten the strain on you is cut up all of the vegetables first into cubes. So dice everything. That will make this significantly easier. I don't do that because, well, I like to feel busy. This is not my normal habits when I'm working, but for whatever reason, when I'm at home, I cut as I go instead of cutting at the start, which is not a great habit for cooking. You should cut everything up first, then cook it. Our filling is coming along beautifully. We're going to add a little bit more chili pepper, just a sprinkle, some paprika, another sprinkle, and some more salt. I realized, far too late, but it's recoverable, that I forgot one of the ingredients, and that's beans. So I'm rinsing off my beans right now, and I'm about to add that straight into my peppers and potatoes. Shoot. Mix. It's not super crucial that they're heated up well, but we want to add all of this mix together. Remember, we're still throwing it in the oven, so they'll have plenty of time to heat up in the oven. I used 1 can black beans, 1 can red kidney beans for color, trying to maintain that color balance. Alright, now we're going to start the layers. So we're going to take probably a spoonful of our sauce here, which is not quite as thick as I'd like it, but it'll be okay. We're going to put that on the bottom of the casserole dish. And remove our mix from the heat. And we're going to start layering. Alright, so what we're going to do here, is, as with most baked dishes, you want to do a layer of sauce or your liquid base on bottom. Spread it out. This is to hopefully keep it from sticking to the bottom of the pan, which should make it easier to pull out. So, layer that. We have our filling. And then from there, I'm going to start dumping cheese sauce in here. I think actually what I'm going to do is I'm just going to dump the rest of our mix and then dump our cheese sauce because it's thin enough that it's just going to run through all of it. So instead of doing spoonful at a time, I'm just going to dump. Now, that's the filling dumped in. Now we're going to dump the cheese sauce. Probably could have moved the flour for this, since it's in my way now, but do that. We're going to use that spoon that we had for the cheese to kind of spread it around as best we can. Alright. Spread. Kind of mix as you go. You want it to get in the middle of all of your veggies and beans, kind of distributing itself. That's why you would have normally done layers, but with as liquidy as it is, I don't think layers are necessary. I think just a little bit of a mix after we get it in the pan should be plenty. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do a thin, and I mean thin, because remember this is a cheese sauce, layer of cheese on top. So, there's that. Look at that. It's pretty weird. There's our thin layer of cheese sauce. Now we're going to take none of our chili powder, because it's already going to be too spicy probably for the children. But I'm going to do some paprika. If you like spicier, you can add some more chili powder. I gotta go for the palate of children that I'm serving though. So, paprika for color on top. There we go. Now it's coming out. It was stuck. Just like that. And then we're going to throw this in the oven. And while we're waiting for it, we're going to rinse off our green onions. Our tomatoes are already diced. And then we're going to top with tomatoes and our diced tomatoes and our green onions after it comes out. We're only going to stick this in because we've already cooked all the other ingredients. We're only going to stick this in for about 15 minutes. All right, guys, and there we have it. The completed dish. Topped with diced tomatoes and green onions. Now I'm going to let this sit for a little while before I serve it because it just came fresh out of the oven. So I'm going to give this about probably 10 minutes. It's 5:30 now. And then I'll show you what it looks like. We're doing bowls, but I'll show you what it should come out like. You should be able to cut this into squares. Hopefully. We'll see. Alright, here goes nothing. Yeah, okay, it's not going to come out as squares, I can already tell. We're going to switch to a spoon. So liquidy. Look at that. Liquid. It's going to be moist. Delicious. But I got to find a spoon. And there you have it. It would look a lot better if it was thicker. And I was able to use a spatula, because then we would still have the crust of cheese on top instead of it essentially mixing into the rest. But that is our final product. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Doomsday Pantry. I will catch you next time. Enjoy your dinner.